It hit me some time ago that you and I live in a world that's so complex that I call it living in a world of the edge of chaos. The challenge you and I face today is how do we lead in this world that's ever-changing, that's complex, that's moving every single day. The extent to which things are set in means they move again, they change. You think about doing business today and how business has changed. 10 years ago, the most profitable store, Whitey Bresson tells me, the most profitable store in the ShopRite group 10 years ago was their Santon store. Today, their 4 most profitable stores are all based in the township. Their Deep Throat store does 4 times the turnover of Santon. If you're living in the business today where you're doing things the way you did them 5 years ago, I have news for you. You have no business. You just haven't caught on to it yet.
In the future, a computer is going to take the job of an individual. And are countries ready for this? Because one of the comments made was also that legislation actually is limiting it even right now. So technology is further ahead than countries' legislation will allow. So I suppose the question is it a real threat or not? Is it something like South Africa needs to be cognizant of? Because we've got a massive employment issue. I mean, what's the youth unemployment rate? As far as I know, it's 60%. Is that correct? Jared, what's your view? I mean, on the fact that is technology in what you do, is it something that you think can actually replace people?
I don't see holograms replacing receptionists and that.
It's not a hologram per se, but like technology, like a machine.
Yeah, I think machinery, like we were talking earlier, is without a doubt a way forward for companies to increase productivity and bring down their payroll costs and their operating overheads, because you get machines that can do the job of 5 or 10 workers on the manufacturing line in half the time. So I think at some point...
And they don't strike.
Yeah, they don't strike. If they break down, they get fixed as quick as possible from the maintenance team. So in the short run... it might be more costly, but it should pay for itself in output a lot shorter than what you would get out of having to train staff members, manage people, keep everyone happy. Like you said, I mean, once a strike starts...
But then what is it then to say that as a country, you need to be investing in areas where the youth should be growing? I mean, not growing, but I mean, are there other industries that possibly aren't under threat that we should be looking to expand and grow ourselves skills around? What are those? Okay? No, because it's true. If you're just saying it's just around labor, and look at our textiles industry, we don't have a strategy as a country that says, okay, what are we now going to invest our skills in, and what are we going to do? I know it's controversial, but if we look at what Hitler did after World War I, right? What he did is he put Germany back to work. Yes, he built a massive army, but I mean, at the end of the day, is that he took a failed, bankrupt economy and put it back on its feet by putting it back to work. So the question is, with South Africa, we've got these threats. Technology, computers taking away jobs, unstable labor force. So it's difficult. What does the country actually say? Well, what can we be good at? I mean, Karika, maybe tourism. Is that something we should be focusing on? Because I mean, tourism for me is something where it's very difficult for a machine to replace experience. You can't make a machine a rhino, as an example.
It's like one-on-one selling as well. If you look at that, you need people to do that personal selling. A computer can never replace that. Tourism, definitely, because you need people to actually educate the customers or the tourists that come to South Africa and show them what we've got to offer. And if you look at tourism, everybody that you speak to worldwide, if they hear about South Africa, and South Africa is actually now been nominated as the #1 tourist destination in the world. So there's so much that we can offer, but we're not offering it. That's the problem.
No, we're not. I mean, even look at this visa rule. I know it's recently been scrapped, but I mean, they're saying it cost our economy, over 4 billion rand this year. Now we're saying, okay, we've just had fees must fall, and now fees are not going up. But at the end of the day, who's footing that 2 billion rand bill? No one knows at the moment. Is government going to use their share of Vodacom sales? What are they going to do? The fact is, they said they're going to do it, but how are they going to fund it? Because we simply don't have the money. So tourism is something right now. We've got a currency that hasn't done well, And we are a destination for tourists, because coming here, if you're earning pounds or dollars and you come into South Africa on rands, you'd be able to have a 5-star experience on a shoestring budget.
I'll give you an example. Now, when I was in Brazil, we visited the slums, okay, which is their poor areas, so it will compare to our, like Alexander, Soweto, things that.
I can't breathe. I actually want to. It's too hot. I want to go get a tissue.
I think he must open that blind so that
Sorry. That was.
he can just come.
Okay, we're back on here, and we've had a change of venue because it's about 40 degrees outside. So we moved out under the air conditioner. Just
for the sake of myself not fainting.
for the sake of Jared. So yeah. So we moved into a nice, more comfortable environment with the aircon going. And yeah, I mean, in the last discussion we were chatting very much around technology and how we can use, what threats it is. But another threat that was spoken about in our lectures, guys, was millennials. A millennial is someone who was born 20 years ago-ish, right? They're in their 20s, and in the workforce now, with us being future leaders, and generally more around Generation Y, Generation X, is millennials don't work like other people. They're somewhat different, and I think there are a lot of challenges. The only comment I wanted to make, and that was discussed certainly in class, was that millennials don't want to work to any kind of pattern. They want to disrupt, and they want your job. They don't want to work for your job, but they feel that they can do your job, and that's a big threat into how the workforce operates. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, in your businesses, do you guys work with millennials, and how do you see this as being a threat? I mean, even back into OBHR with Vijay, Jared, he spoke about how they're doing it in Japan. What are your thoughts?
Look, firstly, I think I'm pretty close to that millennial age. And I can tell.
Yeah, sure.
To a degree. And one thing is, millennials definitely want to try and change the status quo. Gone are the days of a line manager making an instruction and telling you this is how it will be done, and the person just merely accepting it. It's more about now, let's discuss things, but we want to do things in an unconventional way. We want to change the rules like you spoke about. A previous lecturer of ours in OBHR was speaking about in Japan, their new hiring policy is once a year, at the end of a varsity period, where they bring in extremely young guys that have just qualified, and they put them straight into the R&D development at a Fujitsu or whatever one of these Chinese brands are. But the trick is they're only there on 3 to 5 month contracts.
Or Japanese brands.
Japanese. So they're only there on short-term contracts. It would be both a detriment to the company and to them, because technology is growing at such a rapid rate that they'd become bored within a 5-month period, and they want new, fresh blood with new ideas coming through, because technology is so exponential that in 5 months there's new ideas coming through. And I think that's where millennials are, that's where it's going. Personally, in my workspace, we try and hire younger, but we're in an industry where it's not really suited for millennials at this point. We're trying to go that route, but I don't know if you guys are involved in anything in which you bring millennials in, to try and change things up.
You're a senior manager in your business. I mean, how many staff do you work with?
About 14 at this point.
14.
Reports directly into me. But
and in your Sika in general in South Africa, what size is your workforce?
150.
Do you have a lot of millennials? Or?
No, we don't. In my division, I've taken a risk to employ one millennial, and she's a representative, and it's been very successful. Because she's got a freedom, she can manage her work however way she wants. She's now been with the organisation for 1 year, so we will see. But already you can see that she's got growth potential to go to different positions in the organisation. And I think the important part is to offer her the opportunities when they do come along. But she's definitely been a risk that I've taken, and definitely it's worked out well. But in the balance of the organisation, they don't.
Yeah, for me the challenge is that even though you've got this disruptive component to millennials, that some of them are going to be disruptive and some of them could be a CEO 22 years old, the reality is you still need a workforce. So the question is that when it comes to management styles, do you need to change the way your business manages these people on all of them? Or do you keep things the way they were? And if you keep them the way they were, are you just becoming a company that's going to just churn through a lot of staff and possibly not be able to find the people that could be hugely successful in a shorter space of time? For me, as a, we run a call center, so we generally recruit about 750 people in a year to retain 150. So, and our business is entirely millennials, but it's call center agents, so it's people that are not necessarily coming from a skilled background, but it still is a challenge to say, well, these guys actually don't care because they just leave. They arrive,
that's what I wanted to ask.
they go through training, we invest a significant amount of time into them, and then they just don't like it, and they don't give you an exit interview. They just literally don't rock up. You never hear from them. So it's quite a challenging, in the sense of the respect for how things should be done, that there's literally nothing. So you've got to say, well, it's not because of it's just how they are, but how does a business align to get the best out of them, at the same time still get what they need as a workforce. So, and I don't think there's an answer. I really don't. I think a lot of companies work to this outcomes-based management, and now flexibility and work hours that are different and balance and things like that, and it's a buzzword. I mean, if you go into Sandton right now and you see all these new big offices that have got gyms and creches, I mean, that's another way of thinking. They're saying, well, I'll give you everything while you're at work. So
it's like Google. I don't know if any of you have been at Google's head office, but colleagues of mine went to Google head office, and if you look at the way that they structure their employment environment, the guys have got everything. You've got canteens, you get food for free.
But then they want you to work there all the time, man.
Absolutely.
So it's actually another way of saying, well, there's no flexibility here because I'm going to give you everything you need to, but I'm going to keep you here.
No, but there's flexibility in moving across different divisions.
Yeah, you can.
See, I think the problem that people have where they mistake millennials is like what you're saying now with bringing young people into a call center. So we too also have a call center, we do bring young people, we face the exact same problem. Some days they just don't come back to work. You can't get hold of them, don't know where they are. You spend a lot of time and money invested into their training, to getting them up and running as sales reps, a lot of learning, and they just don't pitch. So I think that what people mistake is millennials that are educated, that are qualified. That's where you really see a person that knows what they want and doesn't want to stay around too long. They want tasks. Give me a 3-month project, I'll kill it for you, there's no doubt about that, but then move me in 3 months or I'm out of here. I think when you deal with South Africa, that you've got these uneducated people, which is a problem from both government and private sector, they don't understand the whole side of millennials. To them, it's a fight or die scenario. They've grown up in very harsh conditions, they've come from very harsh backgrounds, so they're not really educated enough to understand the concept of millennial in this short-term, go out, get it, change the status quo mindset. To them, it's, you know what, I don't want to work here, alright, it's a far travel for me, it might be easier for me to actually stay at home, alright, I've seen my parents do it, alright, maybe live off the government for a little bit, or just get a job around the corner at the cafe. Yeah, I make 2,000 Rand less a month, but I can supplement that by selling other things. And I think that might be a problem that South Africa's experience with millennials.
Yeah, there's another issue. I mean, in Thursday night's lecture with Sarah, she had a guest lecturer called Mo from a company called Harambee, which is a youth accelerator.
I wasn't there.
No, but I mean, essentially, it was very, very good. And one of the challenges that he spoke about was that, this is before the break, so there were still a lot of people there. And he said that there's a place outside Joburg called Orange Farm, which is a residential community, and that if one of those residents got a job in Johannesburg, to get to Johannesburg via a taxi each day will cost that person 150 Rand. Okay? So what that essentially means is there's no job that could ultimately be viable for that person at a starting level.
Because he's going to get what, 6,000 Rand a month starting, pay
6,000
half of that in
Rand,
transport.
and if it's 20 days times 150,
Well, that's
essentially he's got
3,000
3,000 Rand.
Well, that's one way, eh? One way is.
So 6,000 Rand a month. And essentially,
150 one way.
One way.
So essentially, seeing these things, you say you're right. Okay, if you're youth there and you've got a matric, what do? Because you can't go move in somewhere. You've got to have the cash flow to obviously get yourself up and running. So these kind of things are challenges. So it's very, very interesting. Cool.
But where you do see massive strides in this whole concept of millennials is in Europe, is where and in these gaming industries where what's the gaming site? Ubisoft, I think it's called. bring in 18-year-olds.
Activision.
Yeah, Activision. I mean, and they'll bring in 18 to 20-year-olds.
Blizzard is another big one.
Yeah, and they work on a project for 5 months to a year, right? And it's developing a new game. And once that game's done, they're done. They either decide to want to move to a competitor because there's zero loyalty with millennials.
Nothing.
Gone are the days of, you know what, you've taken care of me, I'm going to take care of you. It's where's my bread gets buttered and where can I make the most money and enjoy my time the most. And that's where it's going to. So I think in the South African context, I'm not sure where it's going to.
The challenge in the South African context is the unemployment rate and the fact that there's a significant skills gap. So it's the fight or die scenario, that kind of example we used earlier, to say, well, I don't have a job, but my entry job is going to be your 5,000 or 6,000 rand. And what am I going to get out of that? Especially once you've got all my costs out of it, what am I getting? The reality is that not all people will see as a job, and it's something that they can work towards, because essentially that inertia and that I want to get out, that mindset is still there. So they actually want something, they want to plug into something that's more real right now, versus saying, well, actually I need to go and be a grill at Nando's, per the Harambee example, for 2 years before I work my way out. So that restless mindset is still apparent, yet at the same time with this massive skills gap, it just compounds the South African problem entirely. So it's a huge challenge. Mark, you will know that the second session we had, or it might have been the third, we had the digital marketing, which you weren't involved in. Lawrence introduced Ryan Sauer, who's the CEO of a business that does digital marketing or provides services. And I think that collectively it was definitely one of the most interesting sessions that the class experienced, because digital marketing is something that's very unknown at this point. And what I'd like to bring in is that South Africa is on call it the ground floor with the potential around a data revolution or explosion. Costs of broadband are prohibitive and have been, but they are coming down. We've got fiber to the home being rolled out, and as we'll show you in the video right now.
I think one interesting thing that's driving that growth is how people are accessing the internet. And I don't think it's a surprise or news to you folk in the room that is heavily driven by mobile devices, phones, smartphones, and tablets. And particularly with regard to tablets, you see in the last year there's been a 33% growth in tablet access to the internet. Now, this is, again, both an opportunity and a challenge. Are these devices universally available in South Africa? If they could be, it would transform broadband access in the country. But if we look behind this, it starts pointing to a slightly different challenge. Now, this graph, I realize, is a bit small for you to see. But the top one is the estimated average number of devices per household. The red bar is in 2013. The blue bar is forecasted in 2020. And you'll see that the affluent homes, the bars on the right of the chart, there's not that much growth, but there's a lot of devices per home, between 10 and 12. So if you take tablets, all the phones, smart TVs, computers, laptops, 10 to 12 devices per home on average. Whereas the poorer households, two at the moment, and those are normally feature phones, not smartphones. But what's interesting is when you look at the expected data consumption. So remember, data consumption overall is going to grow 5 times. But where's it going to grow? And the graph on the bottom shows the average data consumption per home. And what you see there is even the poorer homes, with the exception of the very poorest of the homes, sort of the 3,200 to 6,400 Rand a month home, it's anticipated that by 2020, even they will be using 10 gigs of data per month. More middle-class homes and affluent homes are 30, 40, 50 gigs of data per month.
So digital marketing is real, because as marketers, you've got to say, well, now I can access those customers because people are looking at through devices and they're using smart TVs, they're using their phones. So you need to be in that particular medium. And one of the things and the challenges I face personally, and I think this is something that I've given a lot of thought around, is that as a business, we contract digital marketing agencies, but the one thing I hate about digital marketing is that you never know what you're getting. I mean, we've been through 4 digital agencies, and they can sell you the same dream that SEO takes a long time and that it's a strategy that's long term, but the reality is that not a lot of people understand it. So digital marketing is actually an area that allows people to, for me, misrepresent what it is and sell something and sell this like opportunity, but in reality it's a lot harder to achieve. So the talk with Ryan was fascinating because he gave us some insights, around what you should be looking at, what you should be doing, and certainly some of the very easy tricks that you can use some of the platforms. I mean, Facebook, I don't think anyone in the class knew how you could use the Facebook search component to narrow down people with liked interests, and it was very interesting. But Jared, what are your thoughts? I mean, digital marketing is an area that you've got some background in. I mean, even before Ryan, you've worked with, you understand what SEO is, and you've worked with it. I mean, what are your views?
Well, look, back to what you just said now is, myself as well and our company, we went through about 3 or 4 digital marketing companies. It's all just on the same promise of increased rankings, increased conversions and lead generation. But they were making thousands of rands a month off us, and there was no report.
Tens of thousands.
I mean, making huge money off us with no report. When you do ask for a report, you get back the same search report with a few things done in a Word document.
And you're still on page 3 of Google.
Yeah, and you'll see a green arrow going up, and everyone gets excited because no one knows what the hell they're looking at, and that, you've just spent 15,000 rand in the last month with them, but geez, you got 25,000 people looking at your website. No one knows where those leads come from. Half of them could have been from Russia. No one would know. And we decided at that point that, you know what, to pay an outside company for this is just not going to yield the results that we need, and we have to get to start growing our call center and our inbound sales division. So we went internal. We studied ourselves. We went and headhunted one of the guys from a company that we were using, brought him on board. He still works with us. He heads up all digital marketing. So just to come on that point, the only way to do digital marketing nowadays, and I'm convinced of this, is you've got to bring it in-house.
For the reason that you can't trust the people that you engage with because the topic is so misunderstood.
Yeah. 1, you can't trust them, and 2, you know what? It's not rocket science to work on search engine optimization and to control Google.
But hang on there,
it's
Jared.
very time consuming.
Google's handbook is 1,000 pages long.
Yeah, so it's a time consuming process.
It is time consuming, but to the layman, it is actually a very difficult topic to understand. So if you know how to do the headings and the codings, etc., fair enough. But then you probably know 90% more than the layman.
Yeah.
If you're just someone who says, okay, I understand digital marketing, but I'm not a marketer, but I need to do something around it, I think that even the very basics is very misleading, and it's quite difficult. It's quite technology orientated, and a lot of people just don't know what it is.
So myself and my partner, we started learning it, and we were asking outside advice from people that we knew in that, and the best thing to do is to call these companies in and ask them, say, pitch me. But you ask them to bring along one of their experts with. That's what we used to do. We just take as much information as possible. And with our limited knowledge, doing it ourselves, just showing a little bit more commitment than they were, our rankings started going up. We got that excitement, that inspiration, because we saw it happening with our own fingertips, if you want to call it, from typing out articles and backlinking and all the SEO and type of HTML coding that goes into it. And then we hired a person. So digital marketing is, without a doubt, where the world's going. No one wants to look at print media anymore and pay 50,000 rand for a front page that you don't know who's reading it or where it's going.
Absolutely. And a comment I want to make, and I want to ask you this question, Karika. Do you know what a YouTube millionaire is?
No idea.
You don't know what a YouTube millionaire is?
No idea.
It's basically, and it's a millennial in most of the cases, it is an entrepreneur who makes YouTube videos and then gets paid, or how YouTube advertising works is that if you get certain hits on your video, Google will pay you a percentage of the ad revenue. Okay, so when you see videos with millions or billions in the sense of Gangnam Style hits, I mean, he made alone about $17 million out of Gangnam Style just from the YouTube advertising, right? But a YouTube millionaire is someone whose job it is he's made to design videos. Now there's this guy in Sweden, he's called PewDiePie, okay? He is the highest YouTube millionaire in the world. He's been making about $10 million US per year, and all he does is he takes video games, and while he's playing video games, he's got a camera that looks at him, and he gives commentary on the video game. So it's essentially a video of a video game that he's playing, and there's a camera on him, and he's like just spewing a whole bunch of garbage. I mean, garbage to someone like me. Yet this guy gets millions and millions of hits, and he is making $10 million US a year through Google, through YouTube.
So the developer of this game emailed me, and he was like, "Yeah, the level isn't that hard. You can do it." Yeah, right. Go, 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 go. Okay. This fucking... Oh, God. What is happening? I'm fine. Yes! There's the cute little elephant. Oh, my God. I love elephants. This is Sparta. Got your tusk, bro. MLG.
Videos, and it's just like into digital marketing. You're saying, well, now these industries exist, and I mean, $10 million US in rand terms. I mean, we don't need to.
But it's traceable. That's what you're trying to get.
No, he knows. He's got his, now that he's got subscribers. You know, for him, he's just going to keep doing through their content. And I mean, there's top 10. So what I'll do for this video is I'll actually list the top 10. And you can just have access to it, because it's very interesting to say, well, you know, is it an opportunity? I don't know if it's an opportunity, because I think behind every YouTube millionaire, there's probably a million YouTube wannabe millionaires that are struggling to get people to watch their videos. So I think it must be quite tough. But I think there are a couple of really good South Africans, and I'll find who they are and what they're doing and see whether they are, is it something that, you know, can you make a living out of it?
So the beauty is, you take this, what was his name? The Swedish PewDiePie. And not only is he earning income from Google, and Google's happy to pay it because their ad revenue is I mean, it's enormous. They're paying a percentage of what they generate. Over and above that, the gaming companies will go to. Absolutely. And as part of the advertising budget, instead of having to now run out that nationwide campaign costing billions of dollars, give them $100,000 a year supply of Red Bull and say, push our game for us. You know? So there is... Ethics does come into it a bit, but I know we're not going to go there. It's really about what digital marketing does and how it is, like what you say, going to take
also social influencers. What Ryan spoke about, how you can go into Twitter and you can buy influencers. And what I mean by that is you can buy someone with 50,000 followers and get them to promote your product in a very subtle way. So it's that same thing. So you're saying, well, with your social or digital strategy, you know, how can you do it? The fact is you can go and find 100 people and buy likes, essentially. You know, the last time I checked, a Facebook like is worth about 17 rand. Yeah, so if you
industry specific, based on that, I know we were once, we did it for one of our brands. We built up 4,000 likes in, I think it was 2 weeks. It cost us 3,000 rand. Now, if I had to build up likes elsewhere and had to go and do live promotions in store at different stores and pay people, I mean, 1 weekend my costs will double.
Yeah, sure.
So, and we did it because that breeds credibility. So when someone's now on our website, they're looking and saying, they say, let me look at where they're on social media, you know, and sales increase.
I have to be honest, Seeker also, they've employed a complete social media department. They've taken all the guys, they flew them from the world, everywhere in the world, to Google head office. The guys went there, they saw exactly how they can actually promote the company. They're also doing YouTube videos for Seeker products, and they're doing them much more fun-like. They created cartoons for the Seeker guy, everything through the digital
training,
media.
It's a huge component of training. I mean, it's just a variety of things. And it's something that's so relevant to us right now. think it's going to explode. If you look at what's happening with broadband in Africa, I'm not talking South Africa, looking at Africa, which is one of the biggest opportunity continents from an economic perspective in the world, is that, you know, when broadband becomes, well, we don't have, at this point, we don't have earthquakes or tsunamis, but it means that we don't get a lot of access, we don't get to leverage connectivity. So when you get like broadband sea cables, it costs a lot of money to lay them. So there's probably a good reason why South Africa has been behind the curve, you know, because to lay infrastructure down here, you're laying it specifically for this country, you're not leveraging something that's already in place, you know, which is interesting. But we've now got some significant sea cables, and with fiber coming, I believe in the next 5 years, data will come down significantly in price, and then all of these things will become more and more real because more people will consume. More people will consume the videos from your company. Your social strategy will become more important. PewDiePie will probably be having even more people because there'll be more people interested, more people exposed to these kind of things. So I think that one thing that we already, you don't even say we knew it coming into Ryan's lecture, but a digital presence and a digital strategy for a business, and to have understanding around it. It's not a question of whether it's a have to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to have it. If you're not, you can't say to yourself that you are ultimately aligned to, you know, what you need to be as a leader in the world. You know, because it is literally where the next opportunity can come.
Absolutely, and I mean, on both sides of the scale, social media is brilliant from a business point of view because you can do one video campaign that's created in an office like what we're sitting in right now with a GoPro. Alright, if that goes viral, potentially hundreds of millions of people will see your brand, which will create a buzz for what, $50 to make, let's say. The other side is it's so good for society because it now gives people a voice. Sometimes people become these impromptu journalists and they go and ruin other people's lives, but it gives people a voice from a brand's point of view to say, listen, I'm not happy with you. And you can't anymore just treat customers and say, oh, you know what, if two don't like us, we're fine. Because now, what happens if the one person who you've given a terrible service to has 150,000 followers in South Africa and your South African brand? One tweet from him, you could lose customers. 100%. And there was a thing with IBM, which
negative sentiment is much harder to shake.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, there's been a couple of examples. I know someone used the example about the guitar. You know that guy that with American Airline and they broke his guitar.
We're all united on when baggage handlers mess up a guy's guitar. You broke my Taylor guitar. And he writes a song about it. The airline should try not to lose his luggage the next time. 'Cause United breaks guitars. Dave Carroll got famous for putting his complaint about United on YouTube this summer. You broke it, you should fix it.
That's a very good case study because it just shows you that it's not about one person, it's about an attitude. Because you can do it to the wrong person and you can suffer.
But you can also do it to a nobody, and look at what's happened to KFC in South Africa.
Yeah.
You know, yes, it's hard when you deal with franchise stores because how much control does head office and parent company have? But at the end of the day, it is their responsibility to implement control. So when you have people washing chicken out on the street or sharpening a knife on a pavement, you know, and this causes a buzz, and 60, 70, 80, 100,000 South Africans see that. I'd fathom to guess that KFC has lost considerable market share in that fast food chicken space as a result of it. You know?
Absolutely. The COBT course, it's been something that topics have been put there for us to discuss and debate. You know, my personal feeling is that some of the topics have been a little bit too controversial in the sense that all that happens is you get various sections or demographics in the class arguing with each other and arguing for the sense of saying, well, that's my stance because it's my collective, like fighting for a right. So some of the conversation from my part got a little bit misguided, but I suppose it's interesting in that regard. But yeah, I mean, there's been some interesting topics discussed. And yeah, it's around us as leaders and how we take what we're learning in the MBA forward. And I think the topics that were covered are interesting, and the ones we've covered certainly in our discussion today. You know, I think the millennials, technology, digital marketing, you know, are things that are so relevant to all of us. You know? And they're relevant to us today, tomorrow, and in the future it's only going to become, all of the things for me that we've discussed today are only going to become more important in the future for us to actually know what's going on.
I think the important sector is for us as the future leaders or managers in our organizations to be proactive, to look at these type of things when we make business decisions and when we work on our strategies going forward. Because if we are proactive now, we can hopefully be prepared for what's coming.
Yeah, and I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's really what it's about. It's about saying, well, you can't put your head in the sand. You know, you need to know what's going on, and you need, if you're not thinking about it, you are being possibly open to be disrupted, right? If there's someone else coming and saying, well, I'm going to do it bigger, better, faster,
and cheaper,
and that's a huge threat. So, I mean, when our parents were alive, it was easy. You know, the world worked at a slow pace. These days, look at BlackBerry, look at Nokia. You know, they're companies that in 3 years they go from the top of their field to literally redundant. So it just shows you that it's actually, there's so much pressure on making the right decision in this day and age.
Speaking about that, and Dylan will post a video, there's a guy by the name of Wits Kwayu. He's the youngest CEO of a listed company in South Africa ever. And he speaks to so many companies wanted to be the biggest, not the best. And he's saying be the best, not the biggest, because you got Nokia. And they came out with the 3310s, and everyone loved them, and everyone voted for them, and as a result they became the biggest. And then they lost their way. And then Research in Motion, which is BlackBerry, they took over and the same thing happened. And now where they? I mean, I think they went insolvent, or they were on the brink of liquidation. You know, I think they were
they're still around, but I mean, essentially their share price has dropped by, I think, 98% over the last. So literally, the company is a shell of what it used to be. And it just shows you, I mean, in the technology space, it's just, you can't make bad decisions.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the video is great. He speaks to how Samsung, for him, is the most innovative company in the world, and Discovery, Insure, and how no one wants to sit in a conference with the CEO and listen to 10 minutes of numbers. They want to listen to where's the company going, what are we doing to change things, you know, what makes us a better company. And I think, you should put the video up, it's actually pretty cool to watch.
Oh, we'll do that. Yeah, thanks, Mark. I mean, it's been good. We hope you enjoy what we've done today. I mean, we thought that doing the typical Word document or PowerPoint with the slides, ticking the right boxes, was something that was possibly not going to give you, you know, our true feelings on the matter. You know, because it's always like, you know, you're a bit stereotyped and you're trying to do and say the right things. And we thought that something more authentic and more aligned to the kind of course that we've been experienced through is hearing our voices and having the debates around the topics that we thought were particularly interesting. So we hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.